The coffee shop smelled the same. Nora Bennett hadn't expected that. 5 years should have changed something. The owners, maybe. The menu. The arrangement of mismatched chairs that looked like they'd been salvaged from different decades. But no. Even the crack in the front window remained a thin lightning bolt frozen in glass, splitting the Portland rain into fractured streams. She sat in the corner booth. Their booth. Her fingers traced the edge of the table where someone had carved initials years ago. Not theirs. They'd never been the type to leave marks. That was the problem, maybe. They'd passed through each other's lives like shadows, and when the light changed, there was nothing left to prove they'd been real. The engagement ring caught the Grady afternoon fight. Platinum, a single diamond, tasteful, expensive, exactly what Marcus would choose. Nora turned her hand watching the stone refract the world into tiny manageable pieces. Her phone buzzed. Just landed in Tokyo. Big meeting tomorrow. I'm sorry I can't be there, babe. Give Sophie my congratulations. Love you. Nora stared at the message. Type back, love you too. She didn't send it right away. Instead, she watched the cursor blink, waited to feel something. The warmth that should come when someone says they love you. The flutter of missing them. The certainty that you're building a life with the right person. Nothing came. She sent the message anyway. Outside, Portland wept the way it always did in October. Not the aggressive downpour of summer storms, but a persistent drizzle that worked its way into everything. Bones, memories, the spaces between what you say and what you mean. Nora had left Seattle at dawn. The drive down I-5 should have taken 3 hours. She'd stretched it to 5, pulling off at rest stops. She didn't need ordering coffee. She wouldn't drink. Anything to delay arriving. Anything to avoid the feeling that was building in her chest like water behind a dam. The barista called out an order. A young couple collected their drinks, laughing about something Nora couldn't hear. The girl wore a vintage band t-shirt, oversized and paint-stained. The boy had a camera strap around his neck. Nora looked away. You okay? The barista stood beside her booth, 20-something with kind eyes and a septum piercing. Fine, Nora said. Just this place. Yeah, the barista smiled. It gets everyone like that. You used to come here a long time ago. Well, welcome back. After she left, Nora wondered if she'd been that transparent. If loss had a smell, a visible aura that strangers could detect. She'd gotten good at hiding it in Seattle. The busy architect with the stable boyfriend in the Pinterest-perfect apartment. No one there knew about the years she'd stopped being able to sleep through the night. The years she'd learned that grief doesn't announce itself with drama. It just moves in quietly and rearranges your furniture when you're not looking. Her phone rang. Sophie, please tell me you're already in town. I'm in town. Thank God. Listen, I know I said the rehearsal dinner was optional, but my mother is having a complete meltdown about the seating chart, and I need someone who won't judge me for drinking wine at 2 p.m. Despite everything, Nora smiled. I'll be there. You're staying at your dad's? Yeah. How is he? Nora hesitated. He's, managing. That's Daniel speak for not great, but too stubborn to admit it. Exactly. Well, tell him I said hi. And Nora, yeah, I'm really glad you're here. After they hung up, Nora sat for another 10 minutes. The coffee had gone cold. She should leave. Get to her dad's house, unpack, prepare herself for the weekend ahead. A wedding. Speeches about love and forever. Dancing to songs about never letting go. She'd have to smile through all of it. Pretend that watching two people promise each other everything didn't feel like swallowing glass. Marcus had proposed 3 months ago, not in some grand gesture. They'd been having dinner, a nice restaurant. He'd been talking about their future, the house they'd buy, the timeline for kids. 2, he thought, maybe 3. And then he'd taken out the ring, and it had been so logical, so inevitable, that saying no felt like arguing with gravity. She'd said yes. And part of her had meant it. Marcus was good, stable. He called his mother every Sunday. He'd never once raised his voice in anger. He looked at Nora like she was something precious, something worth protecting. It should have been enough. She left $20 on the table and walked out into the rain. Daniel Bennett's house sat on the edge of Portland's Selwood neighborhood, a weathered craftsman with a workshop out back that smelled like sawdust and linseed oil. Nora's mother had loved this house. She'd spent years talking about renovating the kitchen, updating the bathrooms, replacing the porch that sagged slightly on the left side. They'd never gotten around to it. The truck in the driveway was older than Nora. Her father was under it, only his legs visible, work boots crossed at the ankle. You know, Nora said, most people use jacks. The legs shifted. Her father rolled out oil-streaked and grinning. Most people don't know how to fix a transmission. He stood wiping his hands on a rag that had probably been red once a lifetime ago. Daniel Bennett, at 65, looked like he'd been carved from driftwood, all hard angles and weathered surfaces. His hair had gone fully gray since Nora's mother died, but his hands remained steady, the hands of a man who'd spent his life building things. You made good time, he said. I left early. He studied her face. Coffee shop. Nora's throat tightened. How did you know? You get a certain look. Your mother used to get it too, when she'd drive past places that mattered. They didn't hug, the Bennetts weren't huggers. Instead, Daniel squeezed her shoulder brief and firm, and it said everything that needed saying. Inside the house was exactly as she'd left it at Christmas. Too quiet, too clean. Her mother's presence lingered in the absence of things. The throw pillows she'd arranged just so, the cookbooks she'd annotated in the margins, the garden visible through the kitchen window, now wild with neglect because Daniel couldn't bear to touch it. You hungry? He asked. Not really. Me neither, but I made chili anyway. They ate at the kitchen table, the one her father had built by hand 30 years ago. The chili was good. Daniel had never been much of a cook before, but loss had taught him efficiency, things that could be made in one pot, meals that lasted for days. So, he said, Sophie's wedding. Yeah, and Marcus couldn't make it. Work thing, big client in Tokyo. Daniel nodded, chewing slowly. You know your mother and I almost didn't make it to our wedding. Nora looked up. What? She got cold feet 2 days before. Told me she wasn't sure she was ready. That maybe we were too young. Maybe we didn't know what we were doing. What did you do? I told her she was right. We were young. We didn't know what we were doing. And then I told her I loved her anyway, that I'd rather figure it out with her than have all the answers with someone else. He met Nora's eyes. She showed up, he continued, and we had 42 years together, 42 years of not having all the answers. And I'd do it again. Every time. Nora set down her spoon. Dad, I'm not saying anything, he said. Just, your mother always said you had to listen to the part of you that knows, even when it's terrifying. Especially then. That night, Nora lay in her childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling she'd stared at for 18 years of her life. The glow-in-the-dark stars were still there, faded now, barely visible. She put them up when she was 9, tried to map constellations she'd seen in a book. Elijah had loved those stars. His name in her head was like touching a bruise, checking if it still hurt. It did. She reached for her phone, scrolled through Instagram without seeing anything, checked her email, responded to 3 work messages. Anything to quiet her mind. Tomorrow was the rehearsal dinner, then the wedding on Saturday. Then she'd drive back to Seattle, back to her life, back to Marcus and their plans and the future that made perfect sense on paper. 2 more days. She could do this. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sophie. BTW, I should have mentioned earlier. I hired a photographer. A really good one. Just moved back to Portland, actually. I think you might know him. Nora's heart stopped. Elijah Carter. You guys went to college together, right? The phone slipped from Nora's hands. Landed on the carpet with a muffled thud. 5 years. 5 years of carefully constructed distance. 5 years of building a life that didn't include him. 5 years of almost convincing herself she'd moved on. She picked up the phone with shaking hands. Typed, yeah, we knew each other. Deleted it. Typed, Sophie, I can't. Deleted that too. Finally, that's great. I'm sure he'll do an amazing job. She turned off her phone, rolled onto her side, pressed her face into the pillow, and tried to remember how to breathe. The rehearsal dinner was held at a renovated warehouse in the Pearl District. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs. The kind of place that appeared in magazines about urban renewal. Sophie had good taste. Her fiancé Ryan had family money. Together they'd created something beautiful. Nora arrived late, still debating whether to fake food poisoning. She'd changed outfits 4 times. settled on a navy dress that said, supportive friend, without saying, trying too hard. Her hair was down, then up, then down again. The engagement ring felt heavy. She kept twisting it. There you are. Sophie appeared radiant in a champagne-colored jumpsuit. She pulled Nora into a hug. I was starting to worry you'd gotten lost. Sorry, traffic. Sophie pulled back, studying her face. You okay? You look tired. Long drive yesterday. Well, come on. I need you to meet Ryan's cousin. She's absolutely hilarious and possibly drunk already. Sophie linked their arms, steering Nora through the crowd. Nora smiled, nodded, made conversation with people whose names evaporated from her memory the moment they walked away. She accepted a glass of wine she wouldn't drink, laughed at jokes she didn't hear, and the whole time her body hummed with awareness. Waiting. He was here. Somewhere in this room behind a camera, he was here. The photographer's amazing, someone said. One of Ryan's friends, Nora thought. I've been watching him work. He has this way of capturing moments, like he sees something everyone else misses. Nora's hand tightened on her wine glass. He just got back from somewhere, right? Another voice said. Myanmar. Or was it Nepal? Peru, I think. He does documentary work. Conflict zones, natural disasters. Intense stuff. Of course he did. Elijah had always been drawn to places that were falling apart, maybe because he understood what it felt like. The dinner was called. Nora found her seat. Sophie had placed her at the wedding party table between the maid of honor and Ryan's sister. Safe territory. The food came. Nora pushed it around her plate, tried to focus on the conversations happening around her, but her awareness kept drifting, scanning the room, looking for. And then she saw him. He was in the corner, camera raised, photographing the bride and groom as they laughed over something Ryan's dad had said. Even from across the room, even after 5 years, Nora would have known him anywhere. He'd grown a beard, short, neatly trimmed. His hair was longer than she remembered, curling slightly at his collar. He wore dark jeans and a button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. The same style he'd always worn. Casual. Comfortable? Like he'd never learned to care about impressing anyone. He lowered the camera, checked the display, and then, as if he could feel her staring, he looked up. Their eyes met. The room didn't stop. Conversations continued. Glasses clinked. Someone laughed. But for Nora, everything went quiet, the way it does before a storm. That moment of suspension when the air goes still and you know something's coming. Elijah's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Surprise. Something else she couldn't name. He looked away first. Nora exhaled, realized she'd been holding her breath. You okay? The maid of honor asked. Fine, Nora said automatically. Just stuffy in here. She stood. Her legs felt uncertain. She made her way through the room, avoiding the corner where Elijah stood, and found the bathroom. Locked herself in a stall, sat down on the closed toilet seat, and put her head in her hands. This was ridiculous. She was 31 years old, an adult, a professional. She'd negotiated million-dollar contracts, presented to boardrooms full of skeptical investors. She could handle seeing an ex-boyfriend at a wedding. Except Elijah wasn't just an ex-boyfriend. He was the person she'd thought she'd spend her life with. The person who'd known her better than she knew herself. The person she'd loved so completely that when it ended, it had felt like losing a limb. Like having to relearn how to move through the world with a part of yourself missing. Someone knocked on the stall door. Occupied, Nora called. I know. Sophie's voice. Nora opened the door. Sophie stood there, arms crossed, expression soft with understanding. Want to tell me what's going on? Nothing, I'm fine. Nora, I've known you since freshman year. I know what fine looks like on you. This isn't it. Nora leaned against the sink. Elijah and I, we didn't just go to college together. Sophie's eyes widened. Oh, you were? Yeah. And I hired him to photograph my wedding. Yeah. Shit, Nora, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. You never talked about. I mean, I knew there was someone before Marcus, but you were always so private about it. It's okay, it was a long time ago. Clearly not long enough if you're hiding in the bathroom. Nora laughed, a broken, desperate sound. I thought I was over it. I really did. I built a whole life without him. And then I saw him and it was like, God, Sophie. It was like the last 5 years has just disappeared. Sophie pulled her into a hug. Do you want me to ask him to leave? Because I will. Fuck the photos. You're more important. No, don't. This is your wedding. I'm not going to ruin it because I can't handle seeing someone I dated half a decade ago. It wasn't just dating, though, was it? Nora closed her eyes. No. They stood there for a moment, then Sophie pulled back. Okay, she said, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go back out there. You're going to hold your head up, and you're going to remember that you're Nora fucking Bennett. You survived losing him once. You can survive a weekend. What if I can't? Then I'll be right there to catch you. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. Nora returned to her seat, ate what was in front of her without tasting it, participated in conversations without remembering the words. And she didn't look at Elijah again. But she felt him, the weight of his presence. The way you can feel someone watching you even when you can't see them. By the time dinner ended, Nora's hands were shaking. She said her goodbyes, promised Sophie she'd be fine, made it to her car before the first tears came. She didn't go straight home. Instead, she drove. No destination, just movement. Through the city that had once been hers. Past the gallery where Elijah had his first show. The park where they used to read on Sunday afternoons. The apartment building where they'd lived together for 2 years in a tiny studio with terrible heating and a view of a brick wall. She'd been happy there, happier than she'd been before or since. Eventually, she found herself on a bridge pulled over to the side. The Willamette River flowed below, dark and indifferent. Portland spread out on either side, city lights reflected in the water like scattered stars. Her phone rang. Marcus. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Hey, she said, answering. Hey. I was starting to worry. How was the rehearsal dinner? Good, fine. Sophie's happy. That's good. A pause. You sound tired. Long day. I wish I was there with you. Me too, Nora said, and meant it. If Marcus were here, maybe she wouldn't feel like she was coming apart at the seams. Maybe his solid, steady presence would remind her of who she'd become, the life she'd chosen. Listen, Marcus continued, I've been thinking about the wedding. I know we said spring, but what if we moved it up? Maybe Christmas. I know it's fast, but I don't know. I just have this feeling that we shouldn't wait. Nora's chest tightened. Marcus, I love you, Nora. I know I don't say it enough. I get caught up in work and logistics and all the practical stuff. But I love you and I want to marry you. I want to start our life together. The tears came back, silent, streaming down her face. I love you too, she whispered. And it wasn't a lie. She did love him. Just not in the way he deserved. Not in the way that made Christmas weddings make sense. They talked for a few more minutes. Made plans for when she got back to Seattle. Said goodnight. After he hung up, Nora sat in her car and cried. For Marcus, who would never understand why good wasn't enough. For herself, who couldn't figure out how to want the right things. For Elijah, who was probably sleeping peacefully unbothered by the fact that seeing her again had reopened every wound she thought had scarred over. She drove home, let herself into her father's house, found Daniel asleep in his chair, TV playing to an empty room. She turned it off, draped a blanket over him, watched him for a moment. This man who'd loved her mother so completely that 3 years after her death, he still couldn't sleep in their bed. That was the kind of love that destroyed you. The kind that left you unable to function when it was gone. Nora had promised herself she'd never feel that way about anyone again. She'd broken that promise with Elijah, and it had nearly killed her. In her room, she changed into pajamas, washed her face, stared at her reflection. She looked tired, older than 31, like she'd been carrying something heavy for so long, she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. Her phone lit up, a text from an unknown number. I didn't know you'd be here. If I had, I would have declined the job. I'm sorry if seeing me was difficult. Congratulations on your engagement. I hope you're happy. Nora stared at the message, read it 5 times, tried to decode the words between the words. She typed back, thank you, and congratulations on your success. Sophie showed me some of your work. It's beautiful. She deleted it, typed, we're adults, we can handle being in the same room for one weekend. Deleted that too. Finally, she turned off her phone without responding. Outside, the rain had returned. It tapped against the window, a steady, relentless rhythm. The sound of Portland, the sound of home. Nora lay in bed staring at the faded stars on her ceiling and tried not to think about the fact that tomorrow she'd have to see him again, that she'd have to stand in a room full of people celebrating love, while the only person she'd ever truly loved stood behind a camera close enough to touch and impossibly far away. Sleep, when it finally came, brought dreams of coffee shops and broken windows and a boy with a camera who'd once looked at her like she was the only thing worth photographing in the entire world. She woke with her face wet, couldn't remember if she'd been crying in the dream or in reality. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe grief didn't follow those kinds of rules. The day of the wedding dawned gray and heavy with rain. The day of the wedding dawned gray and heavy with rain. Nora woke to the sound of it against the roof. 3 a.m. She'd been asleep for less than 2 hours. Her body ached with exhaustion, but her mind refused to quiet. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Elijah across that room. The beard, the longer hair, the way he'd looked at her for just a moment before turning away. She gave up on sleep at 5, made coffee in her father's kitchen, stood at the window watching the garden her mother had planted slowly drown in October rain. Daniel found her there at 6:30. "You're up early," he said. Couldn't sleep. He poured himself coffee, stood beside her. They watched the rain together in silence. This was the Bennett way. Shared presence instead of words. Understanding that some things couldn't be fixed with conversation. "Your mother used to love days like this," Daniel said finally. "She'd say the rain made everything look honest, like the world was washing off its makeup." Nora's throat tightened. "I miss her." "Me too, kid." "Does it get easier?" Daniel considered this. "No, but you get stronger at carrying it." He squeezed her shoulder, went back to his coffee, left her alone with her thoughts and the rain and the growing certainty that today was going to break her. The wedding was at 3. Nora spent the morning helping Sophie get ready at the hotel. The bridal suite was chaos. Hair, makeup. A bridesmaid in tears because her boyfriend had texted to break up with her. Sophie's mother arguing with the florist about peonies versus roses. Nora moved through it all on autopilot, zipped dresses, offered tissues, said the right things at the right times, all while feeling like she was watching herself from outside her body. "You look beautiful," she told Sophie, and meant it. Her friend wore a simple silk gown, elegant and understated. Her dark hair was swept back. No veil, just a single orchid tucked behind her ear. "I can't believe I'm doing this," Sophie said. "Getting married, being a wife. When did we get old enough for this?" "We're not old. We're evolved." Sophie laughed. Then her expression softened. "How are you doing, Kilomay?" "I'm fine." "Nora." "I'm fine," Nora repeated, firmer this time. "This is your day. I'm not going to make it about my drama." "It's not drama if you're hurting." "I'm not." Nora met her friend's eyes. "I promise, whatever I felt last night, it was just shock, seeing him unexpectedly. But I'm okay now." It was the most convincing lie she'd told in years. The ceremony was held at a converted church in Northwest Portland. All exposed wood beams and stained glass, the kind of space that made you whisper even when you didn't believe in God. The rain had softened to mist by the time guests began arriving. Nora stood in the bride's room, watching through a crack in the door as people filed in. She saw Ryan's family, Sophie's parents, college friends she recognized. And then Elijah. He was setting up, multiple cameras, checking angles, moving with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He wore a dark suit today, no tie, the top button undone. His hair was still damp from the rain. He looked good, better than he had any right to look. Nora hated that she'd noticed. "Okay," Sophie's maid of honor called. "We're starting in 5. Everyone in position." The processional began. Music filled the church. Nora walked down the aisle, bouquet in hand, smile fixed in place. She kept her eyes forward. Didn't look at the guests, didn't look for him. But halfway to the altar, she felt it. The weight of someone's gaze. She turned her head, just slightly. Elijah stood to the side, camera raised. He was photographing her, the lens trained on her face. Through the viewfinder, she couldn't see his expression, couldn't read what he was thinking. Their eyes met for the second time in 12 hours. The moment stretched. Impossible to measure. She was moving, she knew that. Her feet carried her forward. But everything else had gone still. Then she reached the altar, turned, and Elijah lowered his camera. The ceremony was beautiful. Ryan cried during his vows. Sophie's voice shook with emotion. They promised each other forever, and Nora believed them. Some people were built for this. Some love stories had happy endings. She just wasn't in one. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," the church erupted in applause. Nora clapped along with everyone else, smiled so hard her face hurt, and tried not to feel like she was attending a funeral for every version of the future she'd once imagined for herself. The reception was at the same warehouse as the rehearsal dinner, transformed now with flowers and candles and strings of light that turned everything gold. Nora found her seat at the wedding party table. Beside her place card was a gift bag. Inside, a pashmina shawl in soft blue and a note from Sophie: "In case you get cold or need to hide, I love you." Nora pressed the note to her chest, felt tears threaten, blinked them back. The cocktail hours stretched into dinner. Speeches, more toasts. Nora gave hers with steady hands and a clear voice, talking about Sophie's kindness, her terrible taste in romantic comedies, the way she'd been there for Nora through everything. She didn't mention that everything included the worst year of her life, the year she'd lost Elijah and something else, something she'd never told anyone except her mother. She sat down to applause, drank her wine, watched couples move to the dance floor when the music started. Marcus called during the father-daughter dance. She stepped outside to answer. "Hey," she said. The night air was cold, cleansing. "Hey yourself, how's the wedding?" "Beautiful. Sophie looks happy." "That's good." A pause. "I've been thinking about what I said, about moving up our wedding date." Marcus: "I know it's fast, but when you know, you know." "Right." Nora closed her eyes. "Right. So you'll think about it Christmas." "I'll think about it." They talked for a few more minutes. Plans, logistics, the safe practical language of a relationship built on compatibility rather than passion. When they hung up, Nora stood outside for a long time, watching her breath cloud in the cold, trying to remember why she'd said yes to Marcus in the first place. Because he was safe. Because she'd been tired of hurting. Because after Elijah, she'd needed proof that she could love someone who wouldn't destroy her. But love that doesn't destroy you, is that really love at all? She went back inside. The dancing had picked up. Sophie and Ryan moved together like they'd been doing this for years. Natural, easy, the way Nora and Elijah used to dance, back when she'd still believed in things like fate and soulmates and love that lasted. "Would you like to dance?" Nora turned. One of Ryan's groomsmen stood there. She didn't remember his name. "I'm okay. Thank you, though." "Come on, you've been sitting all night. One dance." She was about to decline again when she saw Sophie watching. Her friend gave her an encouraging nod. Nora sighed, forced a smile. "Okay, one dance." His name was Chris, or maybe Craig. He was nice enough. Worked in tech, lived in Seattle too. Small world. He was trying, making conversation, being charming. Under any other circumstances, Nora might have appreciated the effort, but her attention kept drifting, scanning the room, looking for. And then she found him. Elijah stood near the bar, camera lowered. He wasn't working, just watching, and he was watching her. Their eyes met for the third time. This time neither looked away. The song changed, something slower, more intimate. Chris or Craig pulled her closer, said something she didn't hear. And all she could think was that Elijah was 20 feet away, and it might as well have been 20 miles. And how was it possible to be this close to someone and feel so completely unreachable? The dance ended. She thanked Craig, excused herself. She needed air, needed space, needed to remember how to breathe like a normal person. She found a side door, stepped into an alley behind the warehouse. The rain had returned, light, barely there. She tipped her face up, let it cool her overheated skin. "Are you okay?" She didn't startle. She'd known he would follow. Elijah stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the warm light from inside. She couldn't see his face. Maybe that made it easier. I'm fine, she said. You keep saying that. Maybe because it's true. Nora. Just her name, but the way he said it. Like a prayer. Like a wound. Like something that still hurt after all this time. Don't, she said. Please don't. Don't what? Say my name like that. Like you still. Like we're still. Aren't we? She turned to face him fully. No, we're not. We haven't been for 5 years. Is that how it works for you? His voice was quiet. Careful. You just decide something's over and it is. That's not fair. None of this is fair. They stood there, 5 feet apart, an impossible distance. Nora wrapped her arms around herself. The rain was getting heavier. You should go inside, Elijah said. You'll get wet. So will you. I don't mind. Of course he didn't. Elijah had never minded discomfort. He'd spent his career chasing it. Conflict zones, disaster areas, places where normal people feared to go, always running toward the thing that hurt. Maybe that's why he'd let her go so easily. Maybe loving her had been too comfortable, too safe. I got your text, she said, last night. I shouldn't have sent it. Why did you? Because I saw you across that room and Christ, Nora, 5 years. I convinced myself I'd moved on. That I was fine, that seeing you again wouldn't matter. And then there you were, and it was like no time had passed at all. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Elijah, I know you're engaged. I know you've built a life. I'm not trying to. I don't want to complicate things. Then what do you want? He stepped out into the rain, closer to her. She could see his face now. The years had changed him, lines around his eyes, a hardness in his jaw that hadn't been there before. But his eyes, God, his eyes were exactly the same. I want to know if you're happy, he said. That's not a fair question. I know, but I'm asking anyway. Nora's breath came short, sharp. Why does it matter? Because I need to know that it was worth it, that you pushing me away, that us ending. I need to know that you got what you were looking for. And if I didn't, something flickered across his face. Hope, or maybe just recognition. Then we made the biggest mistake of our lives. A car drove by, splashing through puddles. The moment broke. Nora stepped right back. I should go inside. Nora, wait. No, we can't do this. You know we can't. Why not? Because I'm engaged, because you left, because it's been 5 years and we're different people now, and I can't do this again, Elijah. I barely survived it the first time. She was crying, Chow. She hadn't realized until the tears mixed with rain on her cheeks. Elijah's expression crumbled. I'm sorry, God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I should have stayed away. Yeah, you should have. Chill. She turned to go. His hand caught her wrist, gentle, not restraining, just connecting. I never stopped, he said, barely a whisper. Stopped what? Loving you. The words hung between them. Impossible. True. Devastating. Nora pulled her hand away. You have to stop saying things like that. Why? Because it doesn't change anything. You still left. I still let you go. And now I'm here, and you're here, and we're too late. She went inside before he could respond, found the bathroom, locked herself in a stall for the second time in 24 hours. This was becoming pattern. She needed to get her shit together. But how do you get your shit together when your entire life is falling apart? She cleaned up as best she could, fixed her makeup, practiced her smile in the mirror. You're fine. You're okay. This is just a weekend. You can survive a weekend. When she emerged, the reception was winding down. Sophie and Ryan were cutting the cake. People were laughing, taking photos, living their normal, uncomplicated lives. Nora found her table, sat down, picked up her wine glass, set it down without drinking. Elijah was back to work, photographing the cake cutting, the first bite, the way Ryan fed Sophie with exaggerated care, making her laugh. He was professional, focused. You'd never know that 10 minutes ago he'd been standing in the rain telling his ex-girlfriend he still loved her. Maybe he did this all the time. Maybe declarations in the rain were just a thing he did now, the romantic photographer with the wounded past. Or maybe he'd meant it. She stayed until the end, hugged Sophie goodbye, promised to get coffee before she left town, made it to her car before the composure cracked. The drive to her father's house was a blur. She couldn't remember any of it later. One moment she was in the parking lot, the next she was pulling into the driveway. Daniel's lights were still on. She found him in his workshop. He was building something. A small structure. Detailed. Careful. "What is that?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, saw her face, set down his tools. "Come here," he said. She crossed the workshop, let him pull her into a hug, the first real hug they'd shared since her mother's funeral. And she broke, sobbed into his shirt like she was 10 years old again, let out everything she'd been holding. The fear, the confusion, the love that wouldn't die no matter how hard she tried to bury it. Daniel didn't ask questions, just held her, stroked her hair, let her fall apart in the way only a parent can witness. When the storm passed, when she had no tears left, he guided her to a stool, poured her a glass of water, waited. "I saw him," she said finally. "Elijah." It wasn't a question. "How did you know?" "Your mother told me, before she died, about him, about what happened." Nora's head snapped up. "She told you not everything, just enough, that you'd love someone, that you'd lost more than just him." Fresh tears spilled over. "I never told anyone, except her. She knew you needed to carry it alone, but she also knew someday you might need to put it down." "I don't know how." Daniel pulled up a stool beside her. "When your mother died, I thought I would too. Not literally, but in every way that mattered. I couldn't imagine waking up without her. Couldn't see the point in any of it. What changed? Nothing and everything. I realized I had two choices. I could let the grief swallow me, or I could let it reshape me, turn it into something, use it to build things that mattered." He gestured to the small structure he'd been working on. "It's a birdhouse for the cemetery to put by her grave." Nora's breath caught. "I'm building 12 of them," Daniel continued. "One for each month we should have had together. And when I'm done, I'll start on the next thing, the project I told you about, the house for people who need it." "The shelter?" "Yeah, I'm tired of sitting around waiting to feel better. So I'm going to do something that makes her absence mean something." "Dad, I'm not saying you need to make grand gestures, Nora. I'm just saying, don't let fear make your decisions for your sets for you. Don't choose safe over true just because true hurt you once." They sat in silence. Outside, the rain continued, relentless, cleansing. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," Nora whispered. "You are. You just don't believe it yet." That night, Nora lay in bed and did something she hadn't done in 5 years. She let herself remember. Not just the end, not just the pain, but the beginning, the middle, the good parts she'd locked away because they hurt too much to touch. She remembered meeting Elijah in a photography class sophomore year, the way he'd asked to photograph her for a project on Strangers Who Feel Like Home. She'd said yes. They'd spent an entire afternoon in Powell's bookstore while he captured her between shelves surrounded by stories. She'd fallen in love with him somewhere between the poetry section and the stairs. She remembered their first kiss, New Year's Eve, on a roof in southeast Portland. The city spread below them, his hands in her hair. The way the world had narrowed to just the two of them. She remembered moving in together. The terrible studio with the broken heater. Elijah making coffee at 3 a.m. because he couldn't sleep. The way they'd learned to fit in that tiny space, to become a unit instead of two separate people. She remembered being happy, stupidly, completely, terrifyingly happy, and then came the part she didn't let herself remember. The positive pregnancy test, the shock, the fear, the slow blooming of something that felt like, well, they'd been so young, 26, broke, unprepared, but they'd been happy. For 8 weeks they'd been happy, and then Nora started bleeding, and then there was an emergency room, and then there was nothing. No baby, no future, just loss and silence, and Elijah looking at her like she'd shattered into pieces he didn't know how to put back together. She'd pushed him away after that, systematically, cruelly, picking fights, staying late at work, sleeping on the couch, creating distance because she couldn't bear to see the pity in his eyes every time he looked at her. He'd fought for her at first, tried to talk, to understand, to help, but she'd been so determined to push him away that eventually he'd let her. And then he was gone, off to Peru for a documentary project. And by the time he got back, she'd moved out, changed her number, built walls so high no one could scale them. It had been easier that way, to let him think she'd just stopped loving him, to let the relationship die a simple death, instead of trying to explain that she'd lost herself in that emergency room and she didn't know how to find herself while he was watching. 5 years of easier, 5 years of safe, and now he was back, saying he'd never stopped loving her. And she didn't know what to do with that. Her phone lit up with a text. Sophie, thank you for being there today. I know it was hard. I love you. Nora typed back, I love you too. Congratulations. You're going to have an amazing life. And she meant it. Some people got their happy endings. Maybe Nora just wasn't one of them. She fell asleep as the rain finally stopped and dreamed of birdhouses and coffee shops and a boy with a camera who'd once looked at her like she was the entire world. Tomorrow she'd drive back to Seattle, back to Marcus, back to the life that made sense. Tomorrow she'd forget about Elijah Carter and the way he'd said, I never stopped. Tomorrow she'd be fine. But tonight she let herself break one more time, because she had a feeling it was the last time she'd let herself feel anything real for a very long time. Nora should have left Portland on Sunday morning. She'd planned to. Packed her bags Saturday night after the wedding, set her alarm for 7. The drive to Seattle would take 3 hours. She'd be back in her apartment by noon, back to her life. Back to Marcus and work and the comfortable numbness she'd cultivated so carefully. But Sunday morning came and she couldn't make herself get in the car. Daniel was in the kitchen when she came downstairs at 8. He looked up from his coffee, took in her face and said nothing. Just poured her a cup, pushed the cream across the table. I thought you were leaving today, he said finally. I was. But I thought maybe I could stay a few days, help you with the shelter project. Daniel studied her over the rim of his mug. Does Marcus know? Not yet. And Elijah? Nora's hands tightened around her cup. What about him? Oh, nothing, just Portland's a small town. If you're staying, I can handle running into him. Daniel nodded, didn't argue, just said, the shelter site is in Lentz. We start framing tomorrow. Could use another pair of hands. Relief flooded through her. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. It's hard work, and I'm a demanding foreman. She smiled. The first real smile since Friday. I wouldn't expect anything less. After breakfast, she called Marcus. He answered on the second ring, voice bright with weekend energy. Hey, you on the road? Actually, I'm staying a few more days. My dad needs help with a project. A pause. How many days? I'm not sure, maybe a week. A week, Nora, you have the Morrison presentation on Thursday. I can work remotely, it's fine. Is everything okay? You sound different. She closed her eyes, pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the kitchen window. I'm fine, I need some time with my dad. He's been alone since Mom died, and this project is important to him. Okay, but his tone suggested it wasn't. I guess I'll see you when you get back. We still need to talk about the wedding date. I know. I love you. I love you too. The words felt hollow, like coins dropped in an empty well. After they hung up, Daniel appeared in the doorway. You didn't tell him. Tell him what? About seeing Elijah. There's nothing to tell. Nora, Dad, please, I can't. Not right now. He nodded, squeezed her shoulder as he passed, left her alone with her lies and the morning light filtering through rain-streaked windows. The shelter site was a vacant lot in southeast Portland. Weeds, concrete foundations from a building long demolished. The skeleton of something that might become refuge. Daniel's plan was ambitious. A tiny house village. 12 units, each one small but dignified. A place for people who'd fallen through every other safety net. Your mother and I talked about this for years, Daniel said Monday morning as they surveyed the site. She wanted to do it while she was alive. But cancer doesn't care about your plans. She'd be proud of you for doing it anyway. I hope so. They worked through the morning, taking measurements, marking foundations. Nora had forgotten how good it felt to build something, to work with her hands. Architecture had become so abstract. Renderings, models, other people executing her vision. This was different. This was real. At lunch, they sat on the tailgate of Daniel's truck. Sandwiches from a bodega. Coffee gone lukewarm. So, Daniel said, what are you running from, my matey? I'm not running. Nora. She set down her sandwich. I don't know what I'm doing. I should be happy. I have a good job, a good man, a good life. But I feel like I'm watching someone else live it. Like I'm a ghost in my own existence. Since when? Since I lost the baby. Saying it out loud. After 5 years of silence. The words felt foreign, dangerous. Daniel's expression softened. Your mother told me, not the details, just that you'd been through something that Elijah didn't know. I couldn't tell him. If I had, he would have stayed out of obligation, out of guilt. I couldn't do that to him. So you did it to yourself instead. Nora looked away. It seemed easier at the time. And now I don't know. He's here. He told me he still loves me. And I'm engaged to someone else. And I don't know how to reconcile any of it. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, when your mother was sick, near the end, she made me promise something. What? That I wouldn't stop living when she died. That I'd find a way to keep going, not for her, for me. He looked at her. But there was something else. She made me promise to tell you something if you ever seemed lost. Nora's throat tightened. What did she want you to tell me? That the biggest tragedy isn't losing someone you love. It's refusing to love again because you're afraid of losing. The words landed like stones in water, rippling outward, touching everything. I don't know if I can, Nora whispered. Can what love or risk it? Both. Then you're already dead. You just don't know it yet. She saw Elijah for the first time since the wedding on Tuesday afternoon. Nora was at the hardware store loading 2x4s into a cart when she heard a familiar voice. The cedar or the pine? She turned. Elijah stood 3 aisles over, phone pressed to his ears, studying in lumber. He wore jeans and a faded Henley. Work boots? His hair was pulled back in a small bun. Her first instinct was to hide, to turn her cart around and leave through another exit, but something stopped her. Maybe exhaustion, maybe curiosity, maybe the part of her that was tired of running. She stayed. Elijah ended his call, reached for a board, tested its weight, and then, as if sensing her presence, he turned. Their eyes met across the aisle. For a moment, neither moved. Then Elijah set down the board and walked over. Hi, he said. Hi. I didn't know you were still in town. I'm helping my dad with a project. The shelter. She blinked. How did you know about that? Small town. Sophie mentioned it. Of course. Portland's 6 degrees of separation compressed to 2. What are you building? She asked, nodding toward his lumber. Darkroom. I'm converting the garage at the house I'm renting, trying to get back to film photography, the way I learned. That's good. They stood there, awkward, uncertain. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A forklift beeped somewhere in the distance. About Saturday night, Elijah started. We don't have to talk about it. I think we do. Elijah. I shouldn't have said what I said. It wasn't fair. You're engaged. You're building a life. I had no right to complicate things. Okay. But I can't take it back either because it's true. Nora's breath caught. You need to stop. I know, I'm trying, but you're here and I'm here and it's like the universe is laughing at us. A customer pushed past with a cart full of paint cans. The moment fractured. I should go, Nora said. My dad's waiting. Yeah, of course. She turned her cart, started to walk away. Nora, she stopped, didn't turn around. I'm glad you're staying in Portland. Even if we can't, I'm glad you're here. She nodded, kept walking, didn't let herself look back. In the parking lot, she sat in her car for 10 minutes before she could make her hands stop shaking. Wednesday, it rained. Hard driving rain that turned the shelter site into a mud pit. They couldn't work, so Daniel suggested they go through boxes in the attic instead. Sorting through what to keep, what to donate, what to let go. Nora hadn't been in the attic since before her mother died. It smelled like dust and old paper and memories. Daniel's domain. Nora's mother had never been one for keeping things, but Daniel saved everything. Your mother's letters are in that box, he said, pointing. She wanted you to have them. I just, I couldn't face giving them to you before. Nora opened the box with careful hands. Inside, dozens of envelopes. Letters her mother had written to her over the years. From college, from her first job, from the year everything fell apart. She pulled out one at random. The postmark read, October 5 years ago. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Dearest Nora, I know you're hurting. I know you think you need to carry this alone. But sweetheart, that's not strength. That's fear disguised as independence. When I lost my first pregnancy, yes, before you, I lost one I pushed your father away too. I thought I was protecting him. I thought if he didn't see how broken I was, he wouldn't leave. But all I did was make both of us more alone. He didn't leave because I was broken. He stayed because he loved the broken parts too. I'm not saying Elijah is the right person for you. Only you can know that. But I am saying that you can't heal if you won't let anyone see the wound. Love isn't about protecting each other from pain. It's about holding each other through it. I love you. I'm here. Always. Mom Nora read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face, pooling on the paper, smudging the ink. She knew, Nora whispered. She knew what I was doing. Daniel sat down beside her, put his arm around her shoulders. Let her cry. She knew because she'd done the same thing, he said. She knew because she'd almost lost us both, before she figured out that running from pain doesn't make it smaller. It just makes you more alone in carrying it. I don't know how to stop running. You start by standing still. Thursday, the rain broke. Nora woke to weak sunlight and the smell of coffee. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Marcus. She'd deal with that later. At the site, the crew had expanded. Daniel had recruited volunteers, college students, retirees, people who wanted to help. Among them, unexpectedly, was Elijah. He stood near the foundation of Unit 3 camera around his neck, hammer in hand. Nora stopped short. What are you doing here? Helping. He gestured to Daniel. Your dad mentioned he needed people who could document the process for fundraising, and I had some free time. So you just decided to volunteer. Is that a problem? No, I'm surprised. I've been photographing reconstruction projects for years. Thought I'd try building something for once, instead of just watching. Something in his tone, the way he said watching, like he was tired of being a bystander in his own life. Nora understood that feeling. They worked through the morning, not together, but near each other, aware. Every time she looked up, she caught him watching. Every time he moved, she tracked the motion in her peripheral vision. It was exhausting, and electric, and terrifying. At lunch, someone ordered pizza. The crew gathered in the shade of Daniel's truck, sharing food, swapping stories. Nora found herself sitting on a pile of lumber, eating pepperoni pizza, listening to Elijah tell a volunteer about photographing a village rebuilt in Nepal after the earthquake. The thing about disaster, he said, is that it doesn't discriminate. It takes everything, but it creates this space, this opportunity to rebuild something better than what was there before. If you're brave enough to treat. His eyes met Nora's across the circle. She looked away first. Friday afternoon, everything shifted. Nora was in the trailer Daniel used as an on-site office, reviewing permits when her laptop rang. Video call from Marcus. She almost didn't answer, but guilt won out. Hey, she said, forcing brightness. Hey, yourself. Marcus smiled. Behind him, she could see an office. Professional. Polished. I miss you. I miss you too. Listen, I have something I want to ask you, and I wanted to do it properly. Nora's stomach dropped. Marcus, hold on. He stood, walked somewhere, and suddenly the screen filled with people. Marcus's parents, his sister, his brother-in-law, all of them waving. Surprise, Marcus's mother called out. What is this? Nora asked. Family dinner, Marcus said. I know we talked about moving up the wedding, but I wanted to make it official. Ask you properly, in front of everyone who loves us. Marcus, I don't think. But he was already on one knee, already pulling out the ring box she'd returned to him after he'd first proposed, already smiling that hopeful, earnest smile. Nora Bennett, will you marry me not in the spring, not eventually, but Christmas, this year? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making you happy? The office felt too small, the air too thin. On the screen, his family waited, expectant, joyful, ready to celebrate, and Nora couldn't breathe. Marcus, she tried again. Say yes, his mother called. Oh, honey, say yes. I, movement in her peripheral vision. Through the trailer window, Elijah, he'd stopped walking, was staring at the screen, at Marcus on his knee, at Nora's face. Their eyes met through glass and pixels and all the distance they'd tried to build. Yeah, Nora heard herself say. Yes, of course, Christmas. Marcus's family erupted in cheers. He slipped the ring back on her finger, kissed the screen, told her he loved her, made plans she didn't hear. Through the window, Elijah turned and walked away. Nora sat frozen, ring heavy on her hand, screen full of strangers' joy, and the sick certainty that she'd just made a terrible mistake. She found him an hour later. Elijah's truck was still in the lot, but he wasn't at the site. Nora walked the perimeter, past the foundations, past the piles of supplies, and found him sitting on the curb at the far edge of the property, camera in his lap, staring at nothing. I'm sorry, she said. He didn't look up. For what? For that. For you having to see that. It's fine. You're engaged. I knew that. He surprised me. I didn't know he was going to. Doesn't matter. It does because I said yes, but I didn't mean it. Not the way I should have. Now he looked at her. Then why did you say it? Because saying no in front of his entire family felt cruel. And saying yes when you don't mean it isn't. She had no answer to that. Elijah stood, brushed dirt from his jeans. You know what the worst part is, I actually thought. When I saw you at the wedding, when we talked in the rain, I let myself hope. That maybe we still had a chance. That 5 years hadn't killed it. It hasn't. Yes, it has, because you're choosing him. Again. You chose him when you said yes the first time. You're choosing him now, and I'm here like an idiot, still in love with someone who doesn't want me. That's not true, isn't it? His voice broke. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've built this whole life specifically designed to not include me. And I get it. I left. I wasn't there when you needed me. But I'm here now. I'm right here, and you're still choosing safety over us. There is no us, Elijah. There hasn't been for 5 years. Because you won't let there be. Because you left, the words exploded out of her, loud, raw, years of silence breaking. You left, she said again quieter, when I was falling apart, when I needed you most. You got on a plane and disappeared for 3 months. And when you came back, I was gone. So don't stand there and act like I'm the only one who gave up. Elijah stared at her. Is that what you think, that I just left? What else should I think? Nora, you pushed me away for months, sleeping on the couch, staying out late, picking fights over nothing. Every time I tried to help, you shut me down. Every time I asked what was wrong, you said you were fine. And then the Peru project came up and you told me to take it. You said you needed space. I was lying. Well, how was I supposed to know that I'm not a mind reader? I can't help you if you won't tell me what you need. I needed you to fight harder, to not give up on me. I didn't give up. I gave you what you said you wanted. And when I got back, you'd erased yourself from my life. No note, no explanation. Just gone. They stood there, breathing hard, years of hurt between them like shrapnel. I lost our baby, Nora said finally, voice barely a whisper. Elijah went completely still. That's why I pushed you away. Not because I didn't love you, because I couldn't bear to see you look at me like I was broken. Like I'd failed at the one thing that was supposed to come naturally. Nora. His voice cracked on her name. I didn't know how to tell you. How to explain that I felt like my body had betrayed both of us. So I pushed until you were gone. Until I didn't have to see the disappointment in your eyes every day. Elijah closed the distance between them, took her face in his hands. His eyes were wet. I was never disappointed, he said, not once, not ever. I was terrified. I was lost, but I never. God, Nora, I never blamed you for any of it. You should have. Why? Because biology is unpredictable, because trauma is messy, because grief doesn't follow a timeline. He pressed his forehead to hers. You went through hell, and I wasn't there. That's on me, not you. You didn't know, because you didn't tell me, and I understand why, I do. But Nora, you can't keep punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. You can't keep choosing safety over happiness, because you're afraid of getting hurt again. I don't know how to do anything else. Then let me help you learn. She pulled back, looked at him, this man who'd known her better than anyone, who'd loved her through her worst, who'd never stopped. I can't, she whispered. I'm engaged. I'm building a life. I can't just blow it all up because you're here and I feel. What do you feel? Everything. Nothing. Too much, like her heart was being torn in half. I have to go, she said. She walked away before he could stop her, got in her car, drove to her father's house through tears that blurred the road. Daniel was in the workshop. He took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. I told him, she sobbed, about the baby, and he wants me back, and I want him too. But Marcus, I said yes to Marcus. I'm getting married at Christmas, and I don't know what to do. Daniel held her, let her cry herself empty. Then he said, do you remember what your mother used to say about choices? Nora shook her head against his chest. She said there are two kinds, ones you make from fear and ones you make from love. And the first kind, they were never wrong, exactly. They're just smaller. They keep you safe, but they also keep you from becoming who you're supposed to be. I'm so tired of being afraid. I know, kid, but the only way through fear is straight ahead. That night, Nora couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, scrolling through her phone, stopped on Elijah's Instagram. His feed was beautiful, haunting, images from around the world, conflict, reconstruction, hope emerging from rubble. And then, 3 weeks ago, a photo of Portland, the city at night, rain-slicked streets, and the caption, coming home, finally. She scrolled further, stopped on a photo from 2 months ago, a magazine spread about green architecture and sustainable design. The subject, Nora. Her hand flew to her mouth. He'd seen this. He'd seen her work. And he'd come back. She clicked on the article, read it, and there, buried in the comments posted by an account she didn't recognize, always knew she'd change the world. She checked the profile. Private. But the bio documenting what remains. Elijah. He'd found her. And he'd come home. A text arrived. Unknown number. I know you're probably asleep. I know I should leave you alone. But I can't stop thinking about what you said. About being afraid. Nora, I'm afraid too. Terrified. Of losing you again. Of not being enough. Of loving you so much it breaks me. But I'd rather be afraid with you than safe with anyone else. If that means anything. If I mean anything. You know where to find me. She read it 3 times, typed, you mean everything? Deleted it. Typed, I can't. Deleted that too. Finally, she turned off her phone, pulled the covers over her head, and let herself imagine just for a moment what it would feel like to choose differently. To choose love over fear. To choose the terrifying possibility of happy over the safe guarantee of fine. Outside, rain began again. Soft, steady, the sound of Portland welcoming her back. Or maybe just asking her to stay. Saturday morning arrived with crystalline clarity. No rain, no clouds, just October's sun cutting through the trees in Daniel's backyard, turning everything gold. The kind of day that felt like a gift or a warning. Nora woke to 17 texts from Marcus. Most were logistics, flight times, hotel reservations. He decided to surprise her. Would be in Portland by noon. The last message, I know you've been distant. We need to talk. But whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. I love you. She stared at the words until they stopped making sense. Daniel knocked on her door. Coffee's ready. She found him in the kitchen, reading the newspaper the way people over 60 still did. Physical paper, ink on fingers. He looked up when she entered. Marcus is coming, she said. Daniel set down the paper. When? Today. And how do you feel about that? Terrified. Of him or of what you have to tell him? Nora poured coffee with shaking hands. Both, neither. I don't know. He's a good person, Dad. He doesn't deserve this. No one deserves dishonesty, not even when it's kind. She sat across from him. The kitchen smelled like coffee and the cinnamon rolls he'd been baking since 3 a.m. Daniel always baked when he was worried. What if I'm wrong? Nora whispered. What if I'm throwing away something good because I'm chasing something that already failed once? Is that what you think you're doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I just know I can't marry Marcus while feeling like this. Like what? Like I'm drowning. Like I'm watching someone else live my life. Like every breath is a lie. Daniel reached across the table, took her hand. Then you know what you have to do. I wish it were that simple. It is. It's just not easy. Marcus arrived at 1:30. Nora had spent the morning at the shelter site throwing herself into physical work. Anything to quiet her strain. But when his rental car pulled up, everything inside her went still. He looked the same. Khakis, button down. That confident posture of someone who'd never questioned whether they deserved good things. He saw her and smiled. That open, trusting smile that made what she was about to do so much worse. Surprise, he said, pulling her into a hug. She let herself be held, memorized the feel of his arms, the scent of his cologne, all the safe, familiar things she was about to lose. What are you doing here? She asked, pulling back. I told you we need to talk, and I got tired of doing it over the phone. He looked around. This is the project. It's impressive. Your dad's really doing something good here. Yeah, he is. Can we go somewhere just us? They walked to a coffee shop 3 blocks away. Not the one from her past. A new place. Neutral ground. They ordered drinks, found a table by the window. Marcus stirred sugar into his coffee with precise movements. Lawyer habits. Everything measured. You've been different since Portland, he said. I know. At first I thought it was just stress, being back home, seeing your dad. But it's more than that. Nora's hands wrapped around her cup, holding on. Marcus? Just let me say this first, okay? He met her eyes. I love you. I think I've loved you since the day we met. And I know you don't love me the same way. I've always known. Her breath caught. What? You think I'm oblivious? But I'm not. I see the way you look at me, like I'm safe, comfortable, like I'm something you chose because the alternative was too scary. That's not. It is. And for a while I convinced myself it was enough, that you'd grow to love me the way I love you. That stability and compatibility mattered more than passion. He smiled sadly. But this week I realized, I don't want to be someone's safe choice. I want to be someone's only choice. Tears spilled down Nora's cheeks. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I put you in an impossible position. Proposing in front of my family, that was manipulative, even if I didn't mean it that way. You were excited. You wanted to share it with people you love. I wanted to make it harder for you to say no. He reached across the table, took her hand. But you should have said no. Shouldn't you? She nodded, couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. Is it him? Marcus asked quietly. The photographer. How did you know? I saw the way you looked at each other at the rehearsal dinner. I was calling you and I saw him through the window, the way he watched you, like you were everything. He squeezed her hand. No one's ever looked at me like that. And I don't think I've ever looked at anyone like that either. I never meant to hurt you. I know, but Nora, you did. You hurt both of us by pretending. He was right. She knew he was right. Marcus pulled the ring box from his pocket, set it on the table between them. I think you should keep this for now, not because I want you to reconsider, but because, I don't know, maybe you'll give it to someone else someday, or sell it, or throw it in the ocean. I don't want it back. Marcus, I'm not being noble, I'm being selfish. Keeping it would just remind me of what I almost had, what I convinced myself was real. They sat in silence. The coffee shop hummed with afternoon energy, other people's normal days, other people's simple problems. I should go, Marcus said finally. I'll catch the next flight back to Seattle. You can have someone send your things, or I can put them in storage. Whatever you want. You don't have to leave Portland. You just got here. Yes, I do, because if I stay, I'm going to try to change your mind. And we both know that's not fair to either of us. He stood, leaned down, kissed her forehead. Be happy, Nora, really happy, not just safe. She watched him leave, watched the best man she'd ever known, besides her father, walk out of her life because she couldn't love him the way he deserved. The ring box sat on the table. She picked it up, turned it over in her hands, and for the first time in months she could breathe. She found Daniel in his workshop. He was sanding wood, the repetitive motion of someone seeking peace through labor. It's done, she said. He set down the sandpaper. How do you feel? Awful, relieved, terrified, everything. That sounds about right. She sat on a workbench, legs dangling, the way she used to as a child. He knew the whole time. He knew I didn't love him the right way. And he stayed anyway. That's both beautiful and tragic. He deserves someone who looks at him the way he looked at me. He does. And now he's free to find that person. Daniel picked up a different piece of wood, examined it. Your mother left you something, more than the letters. Something she wanted you to have when you were ready. What is it? He crossed to a locked cabinet, pulled out a small wooden box, handmade. Daniel's work. He handed it to her. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a journal. Her mother's handwriting on the first page. For Nora, when you're brave enough to choose yourself. Nora's hands trembled as she opened it. The entries were dated across 3 years, before her mother's diagnosis, during treatment, after they knew it was terminal. A chronicle of love and loss and what it means to live fully even when death is certain. One entry marked with a bookmark. I've been thinking about regret, not the big dramatic kind, but the quiet kind, the what-ifs that whisper at 3 a.m., the roads not taken because they look too hard, too scary, too uncertain. I have so few regrets about my life, but there's one, and it's not something I did. It's something I almost didn't do. When Daniel asked me to marry him, I said no the first time. I was 22, terrified. I'd watched my parents' marriage crumble, didn't believe in forever, didn't trust myself to know the difference between love and need. He didn't fight me, didn't argue, just said, okay, but I'll be here when you're ready to be brave. It took me 6 months, 6 months of missing him, of dating other people who were nice but wrong, of finally realizing that fear was making my decisions for me. When I came back, he didn't say, I told you so. He just opened his arms. We had 42 years, and they weren't always easy, but they were real. They were ours, and I'd choose them again, every time. Nora, my darling girl. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. But I need you to know the biggest risk isn't loving and losing. It's refusing to love because you're afraid of the losing. Be brave. Choose messy and true over safe and small. Choose the love that scares you. I'm so proud of you. Not for being perfect, for being real. All my love, always, Mom. Nora read it 3 times, tears streaming, breath ragged. She knew, Nora said, about Elijah, about Marcus. She knew I'd be here. She knew you, that's all. She knew your heart, and she knew fear when she saw it. I'm so scared, Dad. Good, that means it matters. She didn't go to Elijah right away. Instead, she spent the rest of Saturday helping at the shelter. Physical work, mind empty, just hammering and sawing and building something that would help people. Around 5, as the sun started setting, she found herself standing in front of Unit 7, the one she'd framed. Her hands had built this. Something solid, something that would last. It's beautiful. She turned. Elijah stood 10 feet away, camera around his neck. He'd been photographing the site, documenting progress. I didn't know you were here, she said. I'm always here. He moved closer. Your dad told me about Marcus. News travels fast. Small town. He stopped, kept that careful distance. Are you okay? I don't know. I broke a good man's heart because I couldn't love him the right way. So no, not okay, but also yes, I can breathe again. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. They stood in the golden light, sawdust motes floating between them, the skeleton of something being built. I need to tell you something, Elijah said, about why I left, about Peru. You don't have to, Osram. I do, because you told me your truth, and I owe you mine. He sat on a stack of lumber, gestured for her to join him. She did. 6 years ago, I started getting headaches, bad ones, and dizzy spells. I ignored them for months. Photographer's hazard, too many late nights, not enough food, but they got worse. So I finally saw a doctor. Nora's stomach dropped. Elijah, they found a tumor in my brain, benign, but it was growing, pressing on things it shouldn't. They said I needed surgery, risky surgery. There was a chance that I wouldn't make it. Oh my God. This was right after you lost the baby, right when when you were falling apart. And I thought if I told you you'd stay out of obligation, out of guilt, that you'd sacrifice yourself to take care of me. So I convinced myself you'd be better off without me, that I was doing you a favor by leaving. Tears streamed down Nora's face. You were dying and you pushed me away to protect me. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was terrified. I was 26 years old and they were telling me I might not see 27. And the only person I wanted to hold me through it was also the person I just watched lose everything. I couldn't add my death to your grief. So you took Peru. So I took Peru, got the surgery there, woke up, somehow survived. And by the time I came back, you were gone. And I thought you'd moved on, that I'd made the right choice. Let you go before I could hurt you worse. Nora pressed her hands to her face, sobbed. We're idiots. We're both complete idiots. Yeah, we are. You had brain surgery alone in Peru. Not alone, the team was there, and honestly, I think I needed to face it alone. To prove to myself I could survive without needing you to save me. I would have wanted to be there. I know. That's why I didn't tell you. They sat in silence, processing. Two people who'd loved each other so much they destroyed themselves trying to protect each other. We really fucked this up, Nora said finally, spectacularly. So where does that leave us? Elijah turned to face her. I don't know, but I do know I'm done running. I'm done letting fear make my decisions. I came back to Portland because I saw you in that magazine and I realized I'd spent 5 years pretending to move on, traveling, working, filling my life with everything except the one thing I actually wanted, which is you. It's always been you. Nora's breath caught. Elijah, I know it's not that simple. I know we have so much to work through, so much damage to undo. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And if you need time, if you need space, if you need to figure out who you are without being someone's girlfriend or fiancé, I'll wait. You shouldn't have to wait. I'm not waiting for you to become someone different. I'm waiting for you to find yourself again. The person you were before loss taught you to be afraid. Fresh tears spilled over. What if I don't know how? Then we'll figure it out together, or we won't, but at least we'll have tried. That night, Nora had her first panic attack in 3 years. It hit out of nowhere. She was sitting on her bed, going through her mother's journal when suddenly she couldn't breathe. Her chest tightened. The room spun. Her heart hammered like it was trying to escape her body. She'd been here before, after losing the baby, after Elijah left, months of waking up drowning in her own fear. She stumbled to the bathroom, turned on the cold water, pressed her face into it, but it didn't help. Nothing helped. She was going to die. She was sure of it. Her body was shutting down. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't Nora Daniel. Outside the door. She couldn't answer, couldn't form words. I'm coming in. The door opened, her father's arms around her. Solid, real. You're okay. You're safe. Just breathe with me. In, out, in, out. He breathed. She tried to match him, failed, tried again, slowly, so slowly. The panic receded, left her shaking and exhausted on the bathroom floor. How did you know? She whispered. I heard you. I know the sound of someone falling apart. I thought I was done with these. Sometimes they come back when we're making big changes, when we're choosing to live differently. He helped her stand, guided her back to bed. You're not broken, Nora. You're processing. You're letting yourself feel things you've been pushing down for years. It's too much. I can't handle it. You can. You are. You're doing it right now. He stayed until she fell asleep. And when she woke at 3 a.m., she found a note on her nightstand in his handwriting. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. Proud of you, kid. Dad, Sunday. Nora woke with a plan. She needed time, space, to figure out who she was outside of relationships, outside of grief, outside of fear. She called Sophie, explained everything. Her friend listened, didn't judge, just said, "What do you need?" "I need to stay in Portland for a while, maybe longer than a while." "Then stay." "What about work?" "My apartment. We have a Seattle office, but honestly, fuck work. This is your life, Nora. You get to decide how to live it." After they hung up, Nora made a list. 1. Talk to her boss about remote work from Portland. 2. Sublease her Seattle apartment. 3. Move back into her childhood home, temporarily. 4. Keep working on the shelter. 5. Start therapy. 6. Give herself 6 months before making any decisions about Elijah. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. 3 weeks later, the shelter's first unit was complete. They held a small ceremony. The volunteers, future residents, local press. Daniel gave a speech about building things that last, about creating community, about how his wife would have loved to see this. Nora stood beside him, watching her father become the man her mother had always known he could be. Elijah was there, of course, photographing, but also helping. He'd become a regular volunteer. He and Daniel had struck up an unlikely friendship, talking about art and grief and what it means to rebuild. They'd barely spoken since that day on the lumber pile. Nora needed space. Elijah gave it to her. But every time she looked up, he was there, not crowding, just present. After the ceremony, as everyone was leaving, Daniel pulled her aside. "Your mother would be proud," he said, "of the shelter, of you, for choosing yourself, for being brave enough to fall apart and put yourself back together." "I'm not back together yet. No one is. We're all just works in progress." He handed her an envelope. "This is the last one, the last letter your mother wrote. She made me promise to give it to you when you were ready to start over." Nora opened it with shaking hands. "Dearest Nora, if you're reading this, it means you've made a choice. To stop running, to stop settling, to start living like someone who deserves love. I'm so proud of you. Here's the thing about second chances, they're terrifying, because you know how badly things can go wrong. You've lived through the worst, and the temptation is to protect yourself, to choose safety. But sweetheart, safety is just another word for slow death, real life, the kind worth living. It's messy and scary and uncertain. It's choosing love, even when love has hurt you. It's building something knowing it might crumble. It's being brave enough to be happy. You deserve to be happy, not content, not fine, happy. So be brave, my darling girl. Take the risk. Choose the love that scares you. And know that wherever I am, I'm cheering you on. Forever your mother, always your biggest fan." Nora read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. She looked around, found Elijah talking to one of the volunteers, laughing at something. His whole face transformed by joy, and she thought, not yet, but soon. 6 months passed. Winter turned to spring. The shelter grew. 12 units completed. 12 families housed. Daniel became a local hero. Nora helped design the community center they were adding. She started therapy. Twice a week at first, then once, working through grief, guilt, fear, learning to distinguish between trauma responses and actual intuition. Her therapist asked, "What do you want?" For months, Nora didn't have an answer, but slowly she began to know. She wanted to wake up excited about her life. She wanted to create things that mattered. She wanted to stop being afraid of her own capacity for love. She wanted Elijah. Not to complete her, not to fix her, but to share the life she was building with someone who understood that being whole didn't mean being undamaged. They'd seen each other regularly, at the shelter, at Daniel's dinners, occasional coffee. They'd become friends again, slowly, carefully, learning each other anew. He never pushed, never asked for more than she was ready to give. But she saw it in his eyes, the want, the hope, the patient, terrifying love. One Thursday in April, 6 months and 11 days after the wedding, Nora woke up and knew. She was ready. She found him at the coffee shop, their coffee shop, the one with the cracked window and mismatched chairs. He sat in their booth editing photos on his laptop, a cup of coffee cooling beside him. She stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching. This man who'd loved her through everything, who'd waited while she fell apart and rebuilt herself. He looked up, saw her. His expression shifted, surprise, hope, question. She crossed the room, slid into the booth across from him. "Hi," she said. "Hi." He closed his laptop, gave her his full attention. "This is a surprise. Good surprise or bad surprise?" "Good, definitely good." They sat in silence, the comfortable kind, the kind that comes from knowing someone so well you don't need words to communicate. "I've been thinking," Nora said finally, about second chances, about whether people who broke each other once can fix each other the second time around." Elijah leaned back. "And what did you decide? That we don't need to fix each other. We just need to choose each other, every day, knowing it might be hard, knowing we might fuck it up again, but doing it anyway. Are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm ready, if you still want." He was around the table before she could finish, pulling her up, into his arms, holding her like she was something precious, something he'd thought he'd lost forever. He said into her hair. "God, Nora, I've wanted for 5 years. She pulled back to look at him. "This won't be easy. I'm still working through things. I have bad days. I probably always will." "I know, I do too. But Nora, I'd rather have hard days with you than easy days with anyone else. You might regret that." "Never." He kissed her then, soft, tentative, like a first kiss, like a last kiss, like a promise. She kissed him back. And it felt like coming home, like breathing after being underwater for too long, like everything she'd been too afraid to want finally becoming possible. When they broke apart, she was crying. Happy tears, healing tears. "This time," Elijah said, "I'm not going anywhere." "Neither am I." They sat back down, ordered more coffee, and talked for hours the way they used to, about everything, nothing, dreams, plans, the life they might build together if they were brave enough to try. Outside Portland basked in rare sunshine. The rain would return. It always did. But for now there was light, and two people who'd loved each other through loss and distance and fear finally choosing to love each other through the good. 1 year later, the community center opened on a Tuesday. Daniel cut the ribbon. Sophie and Ryan flew in from their honeymoon in Japan. Marcus sent flowers and a card that said simply, "Proud of you." Nora and Elijah stood together, not hiding, not pretending, just together. He'd moved into a loft downtown. She'd gotten her own apartment 2 blocks away. They were taking it slow. Learning to be together without losing themselves. Learning that healthy love required space as much as closeness. It wasn't perfect. They fought sometimes. About his travel schedule. About her tendency to shut down when things got hard. About who was responsible for taking out the trash. But they talked. They went to couples therapy. They chose each other every morning with eyes open and hearts willing. The night of the opening, after everyone left, Nora found herself back at the coffee shop. Elijah beside her, 2 cups of coffee between them. "Remember the first time we came here?" he asked. "Sophomore year. You wanted to photograph me for that stupid class project." "It wasn't stupid. You changed my life that day." "That's a lot of pressure for one photo shoot." "You've always handled pressure well." He reached across the table, took her hand. "I have something for you." "Elijah, we said no gifts." "It's not a gift. It's just open it." He handed her a small box. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a photo. The one from that first day. Nora between bookshelves, 20 years old, laughing at something he'd said. On the back, in his handwriting, stranger who felt like home. Then, now, always. Her eyes filled. You kept this? I've kept everything, every photo, every memory, every moment with you, even when I thought it was over. I couldn't let you go. I love you, she said. I don't think I ever stopped, even when I tried. I know, I didn't either. They sat in their booth, in their coffee shop, in the city that had witnessed their beginning and their ending, and now finally their beginning again. And Nora thought about her mother's letter, about choosing brave over safe, about the fact that second chances are terrifying because you know how badly things can hurt, but also how beautifully they can heal. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, steady, the sound of Portland welcoming them home. This time they were staying.